All right, all right. It's JJ Conway. I want to welcome you to our Fireside Chat for today. I'm so excited to be on with you. Today is one of my favorite classes that we do. For those of you who are new to me and my body of work, we do every Thursday, we have a different class. Every first Thursday is Fireside Chat, where I answer your money questions with solutions, not a sales pitch. I love, love, love this class, and I'm so excited to be here with you today. Every second Thursday is our 7-figure business building. Every third Thursday is Real Estate 101. And every fourth Thursday is our Empowered Entrepreneur. If there's a particular class that you would like to see us do in 2023, now is the time to cast your vote. You can go to Building Wealth Together in a Facebook group, which is Facebook/groups/Build Wealth with JJ Conway, and you can find the Building Wealth Together group and cast your vote. That poll is in the group. So that's the Facebook group, Building Wealth Together. The Facebook handle for that group is Build Wealth with JJ Conway. All right, all right. So today is Fireside Chat, and we are going to go straight to the questions today. Now, I am going to ask if you can hear me. If you can hear me, I want to make sure, because I'm not in my normal location. So I want to make sure you can hear me. Drop me some likes or some loves, or I can hear you, or something in the chat so I can know that you hear me before I start answering these questions. But while I am doing that, while I'm waiting for that kind of feedback, I will tell you how you can ask your questions today. Now, if you want to be on camera, you can actually, I've posted the StreamYard link. It should be right under my face right now. I've posted the StreamYard link in the rolling banner at the bottom. It should also be in the main Facebook, how you doing, for the announcement for this post. And then also, if you would rather be on phone, there's a dial-in number for the free conference call. We are up and running on free conference call. Those of you who are subscribed to the meetup groups, you're going to get that link in a replay. And I did forget to put this on Bigger Pockets. Oops. So I'll have to put the replay on Bigger Pockets too. I like to put the announcement, but boy, oh boy, at least I'll put the link for the replay. But keep in mind that the replays don't stay up forever, all right? They don't stay up forever because mama got to pay some bills, right? All right. But you can come on camera. You can use the free conference call. If you really want to be anonymous, you can fill out the form at askjjc.com. And if you want to drop a question in the chat, you can. Okay, so I'm not getting any likes or loves or we can hear you or any of that. So I'm a little bit concerned. I'm going to keep on going anyway because I'm not getting a we can't hear you. So I am a little bit concerned that we may not be getting the best recording today. But you know what? The free conference call is up and running. So we're just going to go ahead and get into it today. Our first question today is one that's near and dear to my heart because my husband is a musician. And so for me, it's actually really poignant that this is our first question today. And our first question today has to do with music and money. It says, considering the economy right now, how do I transition my music career in order to make more money? And I'm going to kind of read this and streamline the question. Basically, this is somebody who plays in a big band and they're just not getting the gigs that they used to. Now, many of you know that I am not a big fan of secular music. I find that most secular music tends to lead us into depression and anxiety, but I'm also not a fan of watching the news or any of those kinds of things. So you might be surprised that I know a fair amount about the music industry because my husband is a musician and he used to play and sometimes still does when they need fill here, but when he was in East Texas, he used to play in a big band. And so understanding a little bit of that dynamic, people are trying to save costs. Everybody's excited about having moving out of the virtual space and into their regular real in live events again. However, People are not willing to pay those big band prices like they used to, especially when they can hire a DJ to get the job done at less of the cost. And that person can be more versatile with different types of music. And so if you have a career that's based in something like that, so let's extract music out from the answer of the question. So the question was asked about music, but let's insert any category that right now is feeling the pinch. All right. Because there are a lot of categories that sat dormant during the pandemic. They didn't make a lot of money and now they are on fire. But there are other categories that are really hurting as people are recovering from the pandemic. Some people aren't recovering. The new normal still hasn't settled yet. And so we don't know what that's going to look like long term. But right now, all you know is you don't have the business you used to have. And I can understand that because I had to make some adjustments to my business as well and do exactly what I show you all to do. So when it comes to a business like music or something like that, where the tides are shifting, one of the number one things that I'm going to recommend is to find thought leaders in your field and connect yourself to them. So in the music industry, who is it that is still making money, is moving and shaking and making things happen? And how can you get that person to mentor you? Some people who are moving and shaking and make things happen, they intentionally create pathways for others. And sometimes you might have to pay a little bit for those pathways, but that doesn't mean you should write them off completely, right? There's many times that I have profited from hitching my wagon via paying a fee to an expert, a thought leader who is connected to other thought leaders who then can feed into me how to adapt my business. So a year or two ago, before everybody else was finding out about different things of dynamic pricing and what's going to happen in the trucking industry and this and this and that, I was connected to thought leaders who were already pouring all of that into me and others in our mastermind. So you're going to want to look for somebody who's making money in your local area, not to compete, but to learn from. Maybe not in your local area if you're in a small town, but you're going to want to look at who's making money and who's transitioning, and then what are they doing? And so with the music industry specifically, you want to look for other avenues to provide services that are needed. For example, during the pandemic, a lot of fine arts programs have really felt the pinch in these, even though there were some school systems that retained their some of their funding because of federal set-asides and things like that. There are others that lost a lot of funding. With all the socioeconomic turmoil, there's a lot of people who have pulled their children out of public schools. So perhaps you can find a way to serve in those gaps as a contractor, or perhaps you can find a way to carve yourself out a niche that is still related to what you love, but perhaps serves in a new way that people didn't even realize they needed you in their life. And because you have that musical background and expertise, now they're willing to pay for you. Okay. So if you want some more specific examples, I was actually about to give one, and then I realized my husband's buddies probably don't want me sharing their secrets all over the internet. So perhaps you might want to book a coaching session with me, and I'll be able to walk through that with you one-on-one as to what some of these people that I'm observing as an outside third party, what I'm observing that they're doing to make money making music. Great question. I love it. All right. If you have a question, we got 4 different ways that you can ask a question. You can submit a question. You can submit a question to askjjc.com. Okay. You can submit a question that way. I am having trouble accessing the dashboard for the free conference call, but it is up and running. I've got it up and running. I see that it's up and running, but it continues to conk out. So if I don't get your question, please do forgive me, or jump onto YouTube or jump onto Facebook. You can ask your question in the comments. You can even come on stage if you want to come on stage. Look, but come on stage and be camera ready. All right. Come on stage and be camera ready. So make sure that you have your background clear, things you don't want the whole world to see, right? Because we got 6,000 subscribers on YouTube now. Right? So we want to make sure that we come. This is an opportunity for you to highlight yourself and your business, even as you're asking your question and getting some free financial coaching. Hey, it's a win-win, right? I get to answer your question, feeds my podcast later on, and you get some advertising for your business. So get the link in that banner and go ahead and jump on in. But until I see somebody in the comments or jumping in backstage, I'm going to move on to our next question. All right. This next question. Wow, this is ooh. All right, shots fired. I'm here for it. All right, all right. So this, when I say ask me anything, I guess they really mean ask me anything. This person says, you, as a preacher, how come you talk so much about money? Money can't buy happiness and it can't buy your way into heaven. Wow. Hey, you know what? I'm one of those people that I study to show myself approved, and I'm very confident in what I do. When I was in the Air Force, there was a time when I chaired a national committee of 17 different agencies. And one of the things that I noticed about each of these agencies is they all had their own personality. One agency, they might not have the most complete picture there, but they were incredibly confident in everything that they did. They would walk into the room, put that stuff on the paper, and confidently and boldly explain to you why they were right and they had the answer. Then you had the scientific communities, and I, as a scientist, served, but I was not the representative for the scientific body, right? I was the chair of the committee, but there was somebody else who served for the representing the national scientific body. And they would have all the data, and they would have all of the proof that what they were saying was true. But they would walk into the meeting and they would be real humble. And a lot of scientists and engineers don't like to have eye contact. Like, I'm still working on that, right? So if you ever notice my eyes are kind of wonky, it might be my camera, but it might also be that I'm just a scientist by nature. And sometimes we don't do eye contact real well. But they'd be all hesitant and like, well, I can't say 100%, but statistically, this could be the case. You see the difference in the two presentations? All right. So I'm going to tell you, some people by nature are confident about things, even if they don't know what they're talking about. I try to be confident and know what I'm talking about. But one thing I do know about money, a lot of very influential people in the Bible had money. And I don't believe that money can buy salvation. And I don't believe in a prosperity doctrine, although I do teach on prosperity. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I'm trying to shift how I speak, because the way that I define prosperity, the way that the Bible defines abundance, is what we call prosperity today. But I don't want to be lumped in with everybody who thinks, well, if you're good, if you're rich, and if you're not, you're nothing, right? I don't believe in that at all. But one thing I do know is that you can do a lot more good when you have freedom of time and space and energy and money. And when you can flow freely in those areas, it multiplies the amount of good that you can do. And so you might say, well, so are you going to have a private yacht or a private jet or, all these other things? Well, I'm looking to change communities. And I don't know what equipment I'm going to need in the future to change communities. If you had asked me 5 years ago, would I ever consider having a private jet or having my own airplane? Although I do love to fly. I know a lot of you don't know that about me. There's two things that I love to do that I have not done since the car accident. I have not ridden a motorcycle because I'm just worried about all the different connections. And for the same reason, even though I was going to get my private pilot's license, I still haven't pursued it. I haven't gone back to taking the lessons because of just with the injuries and all the stuff that I'm doing. But there's nothing like flying. The closest thing on earth is riding a motorcycle. And one of these days, I hope to have that healing where I can feel confident getting back out there. But the thing is, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, would I have had my own plane? I would have been like, that's a waste of money. That's a waste of God's money. But now that I live in rural Texas, there are times where I could actually conceive of the benefit of being able to immediately fly to wherever I need to go without driving a couple hours to the Metroplex, having to wait another 2 hours to get on the plane and do all this and all that. So you have to not look at absolutes when it comes to money. See, money is agnostic. It's not good or bad. And a lot of times, especially people in the ministry, they look at money as evil. And they say, well, the Bible says money is evil. Well, my Bible reads, and I admit it, I'm older than I look. So maybe I'm not reading the scripture quite accurately, but I don't believe I'm wrong on this one. If I am, you can show me the scripture. But my scripture says that the love of money is the root of all evil. And there have been times where my little one is like, oh, I love money. I'm like, honey, we don't love money. We love the Lord, and we enjoy what the Lord allows us to do with money. Right. And so one of the things that we can do when we have money, we can do more good in the community. When you have money and you want to make community change, people take you more seriously. Now, does that mean that you have to have money to do anything on a good level? Of course not. In fact, people who make huge sociological change, people who make huge community impact with their money, they usually started out making the change they could make with what they had when they had no money. So I'm not suggesting that only people who have money can make monumental change, and only people with connections and only people with networking can do good in the lives of others. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if you live according to these principles, whether you have enough money to change communities and buy your own yacht or not, you will be able to walk in freedom of space and time. When you live a debt-free lifestyle and you owe no man, and the Lord puts a calling on your heart, you go. When somebody's in need, you go. And a lot of times we'll say, Lord, send me, I'll go. But then we didn't do what the Lord told us to do 5 years ago. And so when the time comes to send us, we're so strapped in debt, or we're so tied in connections and toxic relationships that we can't extract ourselves from because we're in a financial bind, that now we're not even available to do the very work that God has called us to do. And so I'm very, very passionate about living a debt-free lifestyle. And a debt-free lifestyle is not just money in the bank. I'm talking about owing no man. I'm talking about being free of debts to people, being free of being ensnared by your mouth, being free of being ensnared by you promised you were going to do this and do that, and you don't ever get around to doing it. Ooh, I know I'm guilty of that one, y'all. I know that I'm guilty of that one. Ooh, I know I'm guilty of that one. Anybody else guilty of that today? I remember when the neurologist read me my brain results from the brain scan after the car accident. And he said, I'm really, really surprised with the issues that I'm seeing from the car accident. You have an incredibly high executive function, and this scan tells me that you shouldn't. This scan tells me you should be one of those people that never gets anything done. And this scan tells me you should be one of these people that just kind of bounces around and you can't accomplish much. And so somehow along the line, the Lord has moved in my life to make up for what I lack. But I really believe that the reason that the Spirit allows me to move in ways that other people don't move is because I have learned how to trust in Him, whether I have money or don't have money. And because I've learned how to trust in Him when I didn't have money, and because I've learned how to trust in Him and live by His biblical principles, now that I do have money, it doesn't corrupt my salvation. Instead, it's the opposite. Now that I have learned how to walk with the Lord and trust Him in the hard times, now I can trust Him to do the big things. And I'll tell you, if sometimes you really want to do, oh y'all, I got so many things I want to say. And I know I need to be careful and make my answers shorter, because we do extract these and we put them on the podcast, our Wealth Building Wednesday. These questions and answers, that becomes the Wealth Building Wednesday for the podcast. So if you're listening to this on the podcast after the fact, make sure you start joining us live every Thursday night, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central, so that you can ask your questions live. All right. But two things that come up to me about that, and I'm going to say them and then I'm going to expound on them, but I'm going to say them up front just in case I never loop back and expound on them. All right. So the first thing that comes to me on that is sometimes we feel like we can't be effective, or we can't be doing what God calls us to do because we don't have the money in the bank. And it's not about having the money in the bank. It's about being the conduit that the money can flow through. I accomplish a lot more. Well, wait, before I expand on that, let me go to the second point. So that's one half of this coin. One half of this coin is we cannot allow ourselves to be discouraged because the money in the bank does not reflect our value. Some of us today, we are worth far more than what our bank account might suggest. Some of us today, we're worth, see, there I go expounding again. All right, other side of the coin. Can y'all tell I'm passionate about this, right? Can you tell that I love to talk about this? All right, other side of the coin. Too many of us esteem a person's worth by how much money they have in the bank. And we esteem a person's worth by how much good that they are able to do with the money they have in the bank. Well, I'm gonna tell you something. I had a mentor who always taught about, the wealthiest people in the world give the most. Well, of course they give the most. They give a lot of tax breaks. And this person starts this museum, and this person starts that trust, and this person does this, and this person does that. Half the time they're only doing it so their heirs can get all the money passed on tax free. Because if I do this, if I set this up and it's worth this much over 20 years, well, the IRS gives the rich person a nice healthy credit for that 20 years worth of giving. Y'all didn't know that, did you? I'll tell you what, there's a lot that I learned when I went to George Mason for that year for financial planning. There's a lot of the tricks that I learned about how we move money around, how the wealthy move money around, and all the little loopholes in the system that they use. And it's all legal. And so a lot of times we go in these hotel rooms and we start chasing after these. Let me tell you the secrets of the rich. Pay me $1,000 and I'll show you how to have tax-free loans for life. While the people who are wealthy are like laughing all the way to the bank because they just got your money off of you. All right. But let me go back to that first point. Your worth is not determined by the money in your bank. However, sometimes we hamstring ourselves and we could be receiving more money for the things that we love to do, but we're too afraid to ask. Sometimes we could be doing more, but we don't feel like we're worth it. We don't feel like anyone would possibly pay us. And you know what? You could be in a situation where people won't pay you. You could legit be in a situation where people won't pay you. I've been a Ramsey preferred coach for quite a while now, and about 2 or 3 years into it, I noticed something. Now, I will tell you, it's a Ramsey coach who isn't there anymore who coached me on the fact of take your picture off your website. And I hope that's not why he's not there anymore, because I noticed after I started talking publicly about it, I never said who it was and I never said what company they worked for, but I noticed he had moved on. I hope that's not a coincidence. That's the ultimate in vanity to think that you're at the center of everything, right? So I'm not trying to be vain. I just notice a coincidence, right? But I was really hurt, but I was very appreciative of that because, his point was people are not looking for financial advice from a young Black woman, because I was a little younger then. They're looking for financial advice from an old white man. And so I took my picture off of my website. And I put a picture of an older guy and just some stock photo. My conversion went up 400%. So there are legit people who simply because they don't like how you look, they don't like how you sound, they don't like where you're from, they don't like your kin, they don't like something about you. You smell like lavender, their mom smelled like roses, and they only do business with women who smell like roses. Fill in the blank. Like I got somebody that told me the other day, oh, stop trying to rent from so-and-so. They're never going to rent to you because they're a woman. Because you're a woman and they don't believe that women should have businesses. Okay, you know what? I'm not going to waste my time trying to butt my head against that and make this person rent to me. Forget that. I'll build up my wealth, sell off the rest of my properties on the East Coast and buy my own building, right? But there are legit times where people will not pay you your worth. You cannot stress out about that. However, what you can do is acknowledge it and stop shooting yourself in the foot at the times where people would pay you what you're worth. They would pay you what you're worth, but you're afraid to ask. They would pay you what you're worth, but you don't think anybody's going to pay you that. They would pay you what you're worth because what you have stored up inside is such a treasure to them. Okay. It's such a treasure to them. To you, it's just easy to do, but to them, it's a treasure. You're saving them time and energy, and they want to compensate you for that time and energy if they are a quality person, right? And so I know some of you are like, she is way off of this whole thing about why you preach or talk about money. But I promise I'm gonna bring this thing around, okay? When we learn to value ourselves the way that the Lord values us. Oh, I just said a word right there, y'all. Let me say that again. When we learn to value ourselves the way the Lord values us, and we begin to charge for the imposition or the use of our time accordingly, not only are we securing more of the finances to be able to do more of God's work, but now we are sending different energy out into the world around us. And for all those of you who say, oh, well, there she goes with that energy stuff. Look, y'all, I'm not some new age woo-woo kind of person. I'm a scientific person all through and through. But when you're walking through the grocery store, who's giving off this vibration or that vibration, you know who you can ask for help and who you can't. Okay. The energy you give off is different when you know you're walking in the flow of what you're worth. The energy you give off is different, and that energy opens up doors that will allow you to do more of God's work with less effort. And so, do I think you have to have wealth in the bank in order to be a godly person? Of course not, because I was broke for years. It took me 13 years. Actually, I think it was like 12 years to get to where I could retire from the Air Force and live off of what I had retirement pay and what was my investments, from being 800 and something $1,000 in debt. Right? That was a journey. It would have been a shorter journey if I hadn't gotten all in my feels and said, I ain't going to pay these bills because those are my ex-husband's bills that he read up, and that's not my responsibility. I don't care what that divorce decree said. Okay, so some of us have a little bit of a pity party. I had one for about 2 years, and I paid off all the consumer debt, but all that other stuff, all that real estate debt, I was like, that's his fault, not mine. Look, I got in touch with my black half real quick. So anyway, for those of y'all who don't know, I'm a product of an interracial marriage, and so that is a running joke in my household. But listen, seriously though, I'm just trying to diffuse a situation. Some of you use trying to be godly as an excuse not to do what you need to do with money. And because you don't do what you need to do with money, you're not in the position to really wholly give yourself over to the Lord, into his service, because you have constraints and you have ties. Now, some of us legit have constraints and ties. When I was 800 something $1,000 in debt, I couldn't travel with the international director of missions like I used to, because most of those trips were self-funded, right? When I was 800 something $1,000 in debt, what I did or didn't do was either funded this way or that way. And one thing it taught me was, if the Lord wants me to do it, he'll put the money in my hand. And now what I see is that the Lord is still calling us to do things, but now the numbers are bigger. The impact is greater. But because I showed myself faithful in the little things, now the Lord knows he can trust me with the bigger things. And that's why I, holiness preacher, who does not believe in prosperity gospel, does believe that we should walk in abundance and that we should walk prosperous. It's not that you're only saved if you got money in the bank, but walking in a way to have economic impact in the kingdom of God, in your household, in your community, is a natural outcropping of living the way God instructs us to live in his Bible. Woo! I enjoyed that answer, y'all. All right. So what I'm going to do, I didn't pull it up. Okay, so I'm not going to do what I wanted to do, which we have a series of, while I'm pulling up the next question, we have a series of questions. We have a series of Q&A that I recorded during a Tarleton event. I do realize that I recorded that like 3 months ago when all the students first came. And so I will admit that I'm a little bit behind the power curve in playing those, but I'm going to start playing those during our time together today. But what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to remind you of how to ask a question. If you have a question, I'm going to go check the free conference call. I don't see any hands raised in the free conference call. I'm going to check the Ask JJC real quick because I don't see any comments. If you've got a money question, you can either use the link that I've got in the banner to come on live, or you can ask your question through one of these other ways that I'm saying here. You can either call in with the free conference call, you can do it privately with the Ask JJC, okay? Or you can put a comment in the box. All right, let me go back to the Ask JJC and see if there's any new ones. Okay, those are the same ones that I pulled from earlier. Okay, great. Excuse me. Okay, so let me go back to the next question here. I love this. All right. Okay, so what is your position on crypto? You haven't taught a class on crypto for a while. Do you still believe in investing in crypto? Okay, so let's talk about crypto. First of all, I want to be very clear. I don't feel that crypto itself is the investment, and I've never taught that investing in crypto is an investment, okay? It's speculatory. In fact, I will say that the first banner I posted about crypto said, how to invest in crypto when you don't understand it. And then as I taught the class, I was like, well, invest is not really the word I meant to use. So you'll notice that I changed my wording after that. But I actually am going to teach another crypto class because I wholeheartedly believe that if you have the money to spend on crypto, that it's not a bad thing right now to spend on. However, there are smarter things that you might want to do if you have the income. So how do you know if you have enough money to play around with crypto right now? Okay, I want to assure you before I get into my answer, I want to assure you if you are stressing out about missing the next biggest thing, and you are not out of debt and you don't have a healthy savings and you're not planning for retirement, do not stress. There is something new and big that comes along every so often. And if you missed it this time, like I did way back when, then it's okay. All right. There's always going to be something. See, that's one of the natures of the way that God designed this world and the way that the system still, the way that the earthly systems, which we can have a whole theological discussion about whose purview they're all under. They still flow according to God's universal laws, which are abundantly. Okay. God's universe operates abundantly. There's always growth. Now, you may not make your money, like Wallace Waddle says, back in the 1900s, he said, you may not make your money in steel, but this new thing called the airplane's coming online. Well, since the airplane came online, there's been new technologies and new areas of development every 10 or so years. There's always something new. If you feel like you're getting left behind and you're feeling that pressure inside to hurry up and put everything into crypto because the market's having a sale, that crypto has crashed and it's only going to go back up and up and up. That's what some people are saying. Ignore that pressure. Emotional pressure actually makes people make a lot of foolish economic decisions. But there are some cases where I would say, go ahead and buy you some crypto. So let's talk about what those cases would be. First of all, I'm going to recommend that before you start buying speculative stuff, that you have a good savings account. I'm going to recommend that you pay off your debt and that you have a good 3 to 6 month savings account before you start dibbling and dabbling in crypto. Now, if you have a fun budget, for example, $100 a month to go eat out with, and you want to take some of that fun budget and have fun with crypto, well, I'm not going to fault you for that, right? Because it's your fun money. It's not your food money. I actually still am, but I was with a company where they had a lot of scams going on. So it was one of these companies where you buy into it and then they invest your money. They basically did with crypto what me and other real estate investors do with real estate, right? You put everybody's money together, you do some things and you make some money and everybody gets a cut, right? And what they were doing was they were promising you a cut and promising you a cut. And these accounts of what they were promised you were growing, right? And people were just putting more money into it and more money into it. Well, because of the compensation structure for the company, people were putting in all these fake accounts. And basically at the end of the day, the system collapsed. And many of the companies that were making money with crypto were operating on a similar dynamic. However, everybody in those dynamics did not lose money. People at the top of the chain, interestingly, they roll and adapt and keep on going. They keep on making money and they keep on surviving, thriving, being financially secure. That's a lesson for another day. And I do want to have that lesson sometime because I do want to talk about the nature of some of these businesses, right? But for my aspect, one of my platforms has always been, do not buy crypto with money you can't afford to lose because it is speculative. All right. It's just like when, oh my goodness. Well, wait, let me finish the story. Let me finish the story about the crypto. People were making so much imaginary. And I say imaginary because anytime money's dangled in front of you, but you don't actually have it yet, you don't know if you're ever going to get it. But on paper, these folks were saying, you've invested in us. Here's how much we're going to pay you on the back end when all of this shakes out in a year or 2 years or whatever the commitment was. It's the same thing in real estate. This is not a bad model. Okay. I want to reemphasize that. It's not a bad model. It's the same thing with real estate. You partner with me to buy a property, right? I'm not taking loans because I don't like debt, right? But we're working together as a partner. I'm the majority partner. You're the limited partner. We're putting our money together. I'm fixing the house up. I'm getting paid for my time. I'm compensating the trades for their time. And in a year or so, or 6 months to a year or 2 years, depending on how long it takes to stabilize that property, at the end of the day, we all get paid, right? But when people bring others into that kind of deal, a lot of times to help entice those who don't yet know how to trust that process, we might offer, hey, we're going to make sure that you get X amount every month for letting us hold your money this long. Not necessarily an investment, but you know what I mean, right? There's a lot of real creative ways to do real estate. And so what I do is I make sure before I put together a project that I actually have the money in the bank to give value to those who come in as a partner. Even if the deal flops, I'm going to make sure I have the money to make my investors whole. And I'm going to make sure that I have the resources to ensure that they have a good journey through the process, that they're looking over my shoulder and they're learning what I'm doing and how it's working and all that, right? So these people who are doing that with crypto, they are not necessarily scams. There are a lot of scam companies out there, but that business model is not a scam. Now, the people running it might be a scam, but that business model is not a scam. And I really want to emphasize that business model is not a scam, because as soon as I finish selling off these other 2 properties, I'm going to be asking for your partnership and your money to help buy real estate here in Texas. And so I want you to be real comfortable with that process. Okay. But going back to crypto, one of the things that I've always said about crypto is it's speculative, and a lot of people don't understand how it works. And when you want to make money off of something that you don't understand how it works, it's really important to educate yourself. And if it's really just too complex for you, or you've got too much going on, then again, you want to play around with it with money you can afford to lose. But what people were doing was, because it looked like they were having all these profits on paper, these paper profits, they were liquidating their 401ks, and they were liquidating their savings, and they were taking out mortgages against their house so they could invest in this thing. And I'm like, you would never do that with something that you don't know that you're going to get your money back out. So don't do that here. Okay? Don't do that here. Even when it comes time for you to invest with me, not invest, I shouldn't say invest. When it comes time for you to partner with me, because I'm not promising you any return. What we get is what we get. It's usually good because I know what I'm doing, right? But but we got to be careful about our terminologies and filings with SEC and all that stuff, right? But I want you to understand something. Even when we get to that point, I don't want you taking out a mortgage on your house to partner with me. Are you kidding? I don't want you to put yourself at risk like that. This is not, this is why debt-free works. Some people say, oh, I can leverage debt and I can get further faster, right? Well, sometimes it's great to get further faster. Sometimes it's more important to make sure you actually get where you're going. There are a lot of people who get very far in real estate leveraging debt. I know a lot of them because even when they're trying to sell me something, they argue about my debt-free process. And I'm like, you're trying to sell me something and you're arguing about my philosophy. Clearly, we are not aligned, and you just made my decision real easy. I am not buying into your program. Okay. And so, I always find that real interesting. You want my $20,000, but you're going to tell me I'm wrong about this? I'm sorry. How many people overcame $800 something thousand of debt without stress and without worry? How many people overcame all of that and had a solid plan that allowed them to sleep well at night? Even if they didn't have everything that they needed, they knew they were on a solid plan that works 100% of the time for 100% of the people who work that plan. Yes, there are people who have made millions and billions in leveraging debt for real estate. I am not going to pretend that doesn't happen. But for every one person I know who made it big in real estate, I have, as a financial planner, worked with 5 or 6 others who crashed hard, who lost everything that their family had. So again, just to kind of loop back and close out that question, I don't have a problem with people playing around with crypto. I have long recommended that people only play with crypto with money they can afford to lose. And if you are hesitant about playing around with crypto, then my recommendation is not to buy the crypto itself. And I'll explain more about that later if you want. Not to buy the crypto itself, but to work to invest in the companies that are investing in the technology, that are developing the technology. Because if you believe your Bible, and I believe my Bible, this world is coming to a point where all of the finances are interconnected. And this blockchain thing, it's not going away. It's just not going away. Now, will some of these NFT artworks and all these other, esoteric things that people are launching that are supposed to be collector's items soon, I don't know if they're going to really be worth anything or if they're going to be like Beanie Babies. I just don't know. But I know one thing: if you got in on the Beanie Baby craze early enough, and you rode that wave up and didn't keep holding out, but saw the signs that the Beanie Baby market was changing and got out of that, sold off your stuff and put that money into the next big thing. Well, that's how you make money. That's one of the ways you make money, right? So when it comes to crypto, we know that something is going to stick. We just don't know which one yet. Okay, it's like when the internet first came out. I was a junior in college, a sophomore in college. The internet, no, the internet came out right before I went to college, because I remember we had the Usenet forums, right? So my freshman year we had those Usenet forums, and it was so cool. And then they got the full HTML, and I remember experimenting that. I was one of the first people. In fact, I don't know if it's true or not, to be honest with you, but I don't know anybody else who was an African American woman who had their own web hosting and design company back then. So I'm just gonna claim that. I can't prove it, but I'm gonna claim it until somebody prove me otherwise, right? But I used to build websites for people, and I still have the accesses and things, because I do my websites, most of them. But one of the things that I knew back then is you didn't just have PayPal trying to make it big in the virtual payment space. There were a million different processors trying to claim that space. And I had to learn how to integrate a bunch of different processors into the websites of the people who hired me to build their business site for them. And so I would learn how to do this with Humboldt, and I would learn how to do this with this company, and I would learn how to do this with that company. And I learned how to do it with PayPal. And none of us knew back then that PayPal was the one that was going to stick, but it was the one that stuck. In fact, if you've been around for a little while, you remember when PayPal was riddled and saddled with problems. Like, I thought they were going to go out of business. They were having so many problems with their merchants, right? And so Bitcoin and Dogecoin and Ethereum and all those things, they're kind of like that early internet days. We don't know what's going to stick. I've got some experts telling me Bitcoin's going to stick. I've got other experts telling me that things are going to merge together. We really don't know. And so what I don't want you to do is be like these people who liquidated their 401ks to invest in something that they didn't understand. Because at the end of the day, it's too speculative to really be called an investment. But since we know something's going to succeed, I might recommend either looking at building some of this technology yourself, because the playing field is wide open. If you can get in there and understand what's going on, and I'm researching it, look, I'm trying to learn to see if I can grab my piece of it, y'all. But if you can do that, do it. If you're just a little unsure, if you're just too busy and you just don't have the time to really dig into it, invest in those who are. And invest in reputable companies who are pursuing this technology. And don't go to bed feeling like you've missed out yet again. You were the person who somebody said you need to buy into this thing called the internet, buy into this thing called Facebook, buy into this thing called Apple. Look, there'll be something else tomorrow. Okay. So I hope that's been encouraging to you, but am I buying crypto? Sure, I'm buying crypto. Am I buying crypto with my money that needs to be feed my kids? No. And I recommend that you are not messing around with crypto until you are out of debt. You got a solid 3 to 6 months savings account, maybe even more in these uncertain times, and that you have a solid retirement plan in place. That means you are investing 15 to 20% of your income in your retirement, whether it's through a 401k with or without a match, a thrift savings plan, self-directed IRA, or even just you maxed out all the things available to you at work. And so you're putting it all into your own mutual funds, good growth mutual funds that don't sell a lot, so you don't have to pay as many taxes. Woo, I know I'm getting tired because my grammar is starting to slip. So I really appreciate the question, and I hope that you all appreciated the answer. All right, let me check the free conference call real quick, see if anybody's got a hand raised. Man, I really thought that somebody was going to come on screen with me today. Let me ask y'all this. Let me ask y'all this. And if you're listening to this in the podcast after the fact, go ahead and shoot me an email. You can find my contact information on my website, buildingwealthtogether.com. You can also find on my personal website, jjconway.org. Okay, shoot me a note and let me know if you would prefer that we move these classes to midday. Now, I'm going to tell you why I've been hesitant to do that. And it's a personal thing. When we started Building Wealth Together, we started in Keller Williams, Kingstown, and we started on Thursday nights. And we started at a certain time. And then when I moved away from Virginia, I kept the times because I wanted, we had the class on Thursdays, but all the other classes associated with Building Wealth Together that I would teach from home, all of those classes were scheduled after my son went to bed. That is the whole reason we started Building Wealth Together online classes before the pandemic, y'all. This is our 9th year, right? We're going on our 9th year. 2023 is going to be our 9th. Well, November 2022 through November 2023 is our 9th year. So, I've been doing this since before the pandemic, but the whole reason we started at 9:30 Eastern was because that was after bedtime. And I could sit there and hold little man's hand. We used to call it snuggle hand. I could hold little man's hand, and he would fall asleep at about 9:00. And that was about half an hour I would sit in there with him. And then I would go and teach my class at 9:30. Okay. That's the whole reason we started it. And it served me well. When I moved to, the Air Force moved me to Louisiana, and other places that I've served, I've been able to maintain the same time. And it was a perfect time back then because people on the West Coast, it was 6:30 for them. They could still participate. But I've been hesitant to move it because that's that nostalgia. Did y'all hear that in my voice? The nostalgia of having the snuggle hand. And then when Cubby came along, he didn't want to go to bed if I was teaching a class. He wanted to be in my arms. That baby has nursed through many of my classes, y'all, whether it was the live classes at Building Wealth Together or whether it was when these classes were sometimes video and sometimes audio. Most of them were audio back then, if I didn't have slides. And he would just sit there and nurse and just snuggle with me while I taught. And even today, he still likes to be in the room when I'm teaching and fall asleep to my teaching. So, there's a sentimentality there, but I also want to serve you the best I can. And I'm hearing from some people that they really would prefer me to go live at lunchtime. The problem with lunchtime is lunchtime on the East Coast is not aligned with lunchtime on the West Coast. And so I really would like your input. Again, if you're listening on the podcast after this live recording is over, you can shoot me an email. You can do a contact me through the phone, through the website. But I'd really like to get your impact, whether this is a great time slot for you or whether you'd like me in 2023 to play around with moving it. All right. I'm here to serve. And in order to serve the most people possible, I need to maybe sometimes set aside what I want to do. And that's a good business lesson, Maybe sometimes we have to make a change, and that change might be uncomfortable. Sometimes we might feel like we're losing this or that essence of something we've been doing for years. But you know what I always say, you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep getting what you've been getting. And I've been making a lot of change in a lot of communities all over the world, y'all. It's so much fun. But I know it's time to go higher. So help me determine whether or not that's something I need to change in order to go higher. Otherwise, we'll just probably leave the classes where they are. All right. Let me go on to the next question. Let me pull that question up. Let's see. Oops. Snuggle hand. Yes, my big old burly boy. My big old burly boy. Who rough and tough. I used to hold his hand every night for almost 10 years. Almost 10 years for him to fall asleep. Yep. All righty. Okay, so let's get back to the questions. Give me a second. All right. Should we? Okay, should we try to refinance our auto loan? This is a good one. This is a tough time to buy. This is a tough time to buy a car right now. And I know because I've had my new car on order since April. And now this other car is acting crazy. Y'all, wait. Can we talk about the fact that I've been a one car family for the last week? Oh my goodness. I remember that back in my early days, like when I first graduated from the Air Force Academy, I had forgotten how difficult it was to be a one car family. But honey, if I could do it, so can you. So let me tell you all about my little car issue. If y'all just indulge me for a second, if you're listening on the podcast, I hope you get some delight out of this story. So my son and I went up to Lubbock, and I'll admit it wasn't well planned because he made varsity. So I canceled all of our college visits that we scheduled for Thanksgiving week. But then they lost that Friday before Thanksgiving week. And so I said, oh, well, let's get everything back together. And so it was all very last minute. Like we literally booked the hotel as we were driving up, right? Like not while I was driving, but at a pit stop or something like that. Cause it was all very last minute. Okay, let's get on the road. Let's do this. We're really doing this. And I didn't put the oil in the car that we normally do. It's an old car. I kind of got to nurture it a little bit, right? And the oil change guy had been saying, just put a little quart in every so often, it'll be fine. Well, what I discovered, either I didn't hear him right or he didn't tell me right. I'm not going to pass judgment on which one it was. But we get up to Lubbock, which is 4 hours away, and the car cuts off while we're rolling into the parking lot. And we're already kind of running late because the car wouldn't start earlier. I figured it's because at the gas station, I figured it's because I didn't put the oil in like I should have because I was in a rush and it was last minute. And sometimes, how they say if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Well, I didn't stay ready. And when you don't stay ready, the enemy likes to have a field day with you. And so we're almost to Lubbock. We get to the gas station. The car won't start. I put the oil in, still won't start. All the people who could have helped us, they leave. And I'm sitting here in this little country in the middle of nowhere gas station, praying and asking the Lord to start the car. Starts the car. We get on the road and pull into the parking lot of where we need to go in Lubbock. And the car cuts off and I coast into a parking spot. But we are about to be late, and I'm not about to be that person that walks in late to this college that does not represent my demographic. And so we get in there and we're just in time and we have a wonderful, wonderful tour. We get out to the car won't stop. Pray, oil, car won't start. Student tries to give us a jump, car won't start. The faculty who did the college tour come by. Now I'm mortified, y'all. Like I'm totally mortified. Car still won't stop. The cops come over, car still won't stop. I call him a mobile mechanic. He spends about 4 hours, gets the car started, and shows me the oil that I've been feeding the car going into all the wrong parts of the engine. Now I did it right, y'all. Wait, let me just make sure I tell you, I did it right. But with that, we get on our way, we go eat, we go to the hotel, we go to the next college the next day, and yet again, the car won't start. And we're praying, the car won't start. I didn't add oil this time, but the car won't start. And so I text the guy who fixed it like, hey, the car won't start. And he's like, well, I don't know why. I know it's not those sensors I replaced. And so I prayed again, car started, got on the road. Because he said he would come look at it, but I was like, well, let's just try this one more time and let's get home. If we got a full tank of gas, let's get as close as we can to home. A full tank is going to get me an hour away from home. And if the car doesn't start at the next gas station, at least my husband can come pick me up, right? And so Monday, when the car doesn't start, at first, I'm feeling kind of good when the mobile mechanic comes because, financial planner mom, I got the money in the bank. Well, my emergency account, the card wouldn't work. So I said, okay, that's no big deal. I got the money in my checking account because I'm big dog like that. That's how I roll. We got the money, y'all. Look, after that repair, whoo. And I know, because I was, look, y'all, I was looking up the parts. I know he didn't overcharge me. He probably should have charged me more. And so when it didn't work Tuesday, I was like, ooh, now we gonna hurt, because not only did he fix it, but there were other things that were wrong, and I knew it was getting there, but I was trying to pass that problem on to my son. So anyway, the car's been in the shop for a week. We did make it home. The guy's funny. He calls me as we're driving home. He says, "Don't turn off your car. No matter what you do, don't turn off your car." Now look, no matter how broke I was with that $845,000 of debt, I did not know you could leave your car running at the gas station. He said, "Leave it running." I was like, "Wait, it's not going to blow up when I start to." And he's like, "I thought you were a scientist. You don't know that your car won't blow up?" I'm like, "Look, I've designed aircraft engines, but I didn't know anything." Look, I'm one of those people. Look, I don't use my phone at the gas pump. I don't wear my headsets at the gas pump. Look, we are not inviting the enemy to give me a fire today. Not today, Satan. All right. So we make it home and we go straight to the mechanic. But yeah, it's been a week with a one car household. And every once in a while we just have to be kind of humble to know that these financial principles really work. And sometimes you have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, and it's going to be better for your family. Could I have gone and rented a car? Sure, I could have gone and rented a car, but I didn't need to go rent a car. I might need to go rent a car tomorrow because Mr. Man's going out of town. But we didn't need that. Okay, I'm hoping to get the call any minute now that my car is fixed. So the reason I'm sharing this story with you is because I want you to know that this is real life, real finance. This isn't just some craziness, right? But if the car, wait, I didn't mean to say craziness. And if you're listening to the podcast and I didn't have time to edit that out, I'm so sorry. But what I really mean to say is a lot of times people will tell you something, but that's not what they do. And in my case, okay, it's been a week now, and he fixed the problem that wouldn't let it start, but now there's another problem, and he's trying to figure this out and figure that out. Well, I thought Toyotas last 350,000 miles, but apparently I'm a good 75,000 miles over what a RAV4 is supposed to last. So I kind of got my money's worth out of that car, and so I may be buying another car. Right? So long way to say, I'm so excited somebody asked about buying a car, but I really, really feel for you if you got to buy a car right now, because buying a car is ridiculous. I've had my new RAV on order since April. And of course, I didn't just want the base model, y'all. Look, if I'm going to pay for a car, I want to have all the trimmings. I want the heated seats. I want the dual control. I want this and that. I want the entertainment package. And at first I called myself all deep. When the car didn't come, I said, "Oh, it's because the Lord has a blessing for me in the 23 model," right? Y'all, that 23 model I've heard is going to be off the chain. So I am hoping that I will get one. But the thing is, if I got to have a car, I got to go get a car. And I had to expand my horizons, because you're not getting a premium Toyota RAV4 around here for miles. Right? So then I had to expand my horizon. So anyway, going back to this question of should I consolidate my car loan? When you're shopping for a car right now, cars are incredibly expensive. They are expensive in every market, and especially the used cars that have been solid, and economy, smaller cars that use less gas because gas prices are so ridiculous. All prices are ridiculous. Even food prices are ridiculous right now. I'm like, what was that one meme? Like, all I want for Christmas is Santa to pay my gas bill, right? So cars are really expensive right now. If you can keep your other car going, that's going to be the best thing to do. But if you are really struggling to make your payments and you're looking at dropping down in car, well, then maybe that's the route you want to go, okay? But I want you to be careful with that. I had a client come to me. She had rolled an upside down car after upside down car after upside down car after upside down car. And not only has she been rolling up all these cars, but her credit was so bad. She had a car loan that was like a 20% interest. Now I'm gonna tell you. Now look, I'm gonna be a little bit mean here, okay? Now I'm gonna step into auntie role right here, okay? If you go to buy a new car or a used car, I personally think you should save up for it and buy what you can afford. And I know people don't like to hear that, because a lot of times what we can afford is not a very nice car. But if we would stop spending our money on things we don't need and start saving up for the things we do need, we'll find that we can afford a nicer thing and maybe have less eating out affect our hips, right? But if you go to buy a car and you're like, JJ, I know you don't. I had somebody say one time, I got a new car, don't you JJ me, I know I shouldn't have got a loan. I was like, well, at least she knows where I stand on that, right? But let's just say you're going to go get a loan. If they're trying to give you in today's market, a 7, a 10, a 12, a 15, a 20% loan, let me tell you what the financial industry is saying about you. The financial industry is saying about you that you have done messed up so bad with money. They are about to be rolling in the green because of all the extra money you about to pay them, because of all your financial mistakes. So in my book, you would be better off to get a cheaper car that you can afford. Make some good friends that can help you maintain that bad boy. Find one that can be maintained, right? Like, don't go get you. Well, I don't want to be rude, but I had a Volkswagen Beetle. It was paid for, but didn't nobody know how to work on it in the town I was in. Like, if I had that car here in Stephenville, I don't know who would help me fix it, right? And when I was in that situation, my girlfriend had an American car. Whenever she broke down, a friend come along, tinker around a little bit, rolled on. Now that was 10 years ago. I don't know if those are still, if American cars are still made that way, but you want to look for a car that's easy to maintain, and you want to make sure that you get your other life together financially. When you go into the dealer, I'm going to say it again. When you go into the dealer and you take the loan, I'm telling you, don't take, and they offer you a 15% loan, what they are telling you is you are so bad with money. They are going to make a ton of money off of you. Forget that. Okay? Forget that. Your $10,000 car on a 15% loan, by the time you pay that thing off, you could have bought 3 cars. You know why I say that? Because the fact that you're on a 15% interest rate tells me you don't pay your bills on time. And the fact that you're on a 15% interest rate tells me you rob Peter to pay Paul. And sometimes Peter doesn't get paid in time, and so Peter gets late fees. And then you try to maneuver this and maneuver that and payday loan this and payday loan that. And by the time the dust settles, you're in a worse situation. So let that be a red flag to you. You go in there and you think you're going to get this loan because they advertise 0% interest on the TV, and they try to hit you with 10, 15, 12, 20% interest. I want you to hear my voice saying, you know what? I'm going to take a step back. I need to take a step back and clean up my financial act and get my money life together. Because that's really what needs to happen before you go buy that next new car. And don't even come at me with a car lease. Friends don't let friends get leases, y'all. I'm gonna tell you, that's the biggest. Oh, no. That's not what they asked me. They didn't ask me about a car lease. I'm not gonna go on a car lease rent. You know, a car lease rent, that's almost as bad as a college loan rent, except the college loan rent is even worse for me. But it's like the car lease rent, that's like one step below a college loan rent. So we'll save that rant for another day. But let's go back to this consolidate. So I don't have enough data here to know whether or not you should consolidate. I really do encourage you. This is not a sales pitch, but I really do encourage you to get some time on my calendar so we can actually talk through your situation. Okay. But in general, as I get ready to close out for tonight, in general, when you have a situation where the prices are higher than what you can afford and the inventory is really low, it's time to get creative. And I know nobody likes to hear this, but if you don't have the money to buy a car right now, you don't have the money to buy a used car, you don't have the money to buy a new car. And I am not going to judge you right now about a new versus used car, because normally I'd say go get the used car. But right now the used car is costing more than the new cars. Partially because nobody can get their hands on the new car. But regardless of the car, okay, if you are in this situation where you are turning it over and turning it over and turning it over and turning it over, and the only way for you to keep on moving is to take on something that's going to hamstring your future, it is time to take a step back. But when you do take a step back, let me tell you what's going to happen. When you make up your mind that you're not going to dig a bigger financial hole, when you make up your mind that you're going to value your future as much as God values it, when you make up your mind that you are going to take an action today that your future self is going to thank you for, when you make up your mind that you are done making everybody else rich and making you and your family poorer, the doors begin to open. I have had clients where people have given them cars. I have had clients where people have gotten incredible deals. I have had clients where people have they were going this way and the Lord opened up the door over here and they ended up with something better than what they were going to do before. And in fact, I was just having a conversation with my husband, who I'm about to get off this call with and spend some time with tonight. But I was just having a conversation with my husband about how the fact that I may have to buy a car before my car that I ordered actually gets here, it might actually be better for my son, because when he rolls off to college with that car, which is what I promised him 10, 11, yeah, ooh, that was 11 years ago that I bought that car. I promised him that Rev, and he's been counting on mom giving him her old car all these years. I don't want to pull the rug out from under him with 1 year left, right? So I'll just save whatever I pay on that toward another car. But he's going to end up with a better car. Oh, oh, oh! I hope the Lord didn't allow this to happen to bless him with a better car. You know, sometimes. And if you've ever had this happen, you can give me some feedback. We're gonna close out here in a second, but that just hit me. There are a lot of times in my life where something doesn't work out the way I want it to work out, and when I pray about it, the Lord shows me that it was actually a blessing to somebody else in my family. And I'm like, don't I have the Holy Ghost? Couldn't I have heard the Lord say this or say that? But even as I'm saying this to you today, you know what's dropping in my heart? The Lord been done telling me to get another car. Ooh, ooh, ooh. All right. On that happy note, we're going to close this one out. If you have a question you want to ask next time, make sure you put it in the askjjc.com, or you can register for our classes if you are on either one of my meetup groups or in my Facebook groups, or if you just say, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel or my Facebook channel, well, however you're watching me, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're on the free conference call, make sure whatever platform sent you there that you subscribe, so you'll get noticed. And we will continue these conversations next month. But next week, we're going to be doing our 7-figure business building. The week after that, we're going to be doing our last Real Estate 101 of the year. And I am not sure of the calendar. Let me pull the calendar up so I can see what we're doing. Yes, we have these. Oh, y'all, I got something good for you today. All right, so the fourth Thursday of December, the 22nd, that's going to be our last Empowered Entrepreneur. But on the 29th, y'all keep the 29th open, save the date. We are looking at being live for our Wealthy Me in 23 conference. I am negotiating with the hotel right now. We're looking at the Dallas area, the 29th, Thursday, the 29th. So that's the 5th Thursday. And you know, 5th Thursday is the wild card. Well, 5th Thursday is going to be the day that you set yourself up. I know everybody's already been talking about, well, let's set you up for 23 back in October. Let's set you up for 23 back in November. Let's set you up for 23 right now. Well, you know what? You still don't even feel like you're set up all the way, because they teased you with something and they gave you a partial product. But I'm going to tell you what, when you finish with this conference, you are going to have everything you need to be wealthy in 2023. All right. With that, I'm going to close out. You can join me on the web at jjconway.org and buildingwealthtogether.com. That's all I've got for you today. Y'all take care. Be blessed.